Hello there, I'm Sam and welcome to my little art room in the northwest of England. I'm hoping to make a living as a comic artist at some point, and I am halfway through, or just over halfway through, my first proper narrative comic, the first issue of a comic I call Toast in the Machine. But I'm still very much new to the comic artist game, very much still a beginner. I've got a heck of a lot to learn. But today I'm going to go through some questions I was asked on Instagram. I asked for some suggestions for a Q&A, and I'm going to go through all the questions, but knowing myself well, this is definitely going to be a two-part video. So this is just part one, and you can look in the timestamps to see what questions I'm going to answer in this one. And if you wanted the chance to ask a question, please do leave one in the comments and I can add it to part two or maybe even make a part three, because you know I love to ramble if you've ever watched these videos. So yeah, let's just get on with it then. The first question, really interesting, quite broad question, was what inspires me the most about comics? So I interpreted this as like, what kind of draws me to comics? What do I find exciting about comics particularly? Or like if I'm reading a comic, what stands out to me? I think I thought a lot about this. I think what inspires me the most about comics, what excites me the most about them, is actually the nature of them in and of itself. So like, I didn't necessarily grow up like reading loads of comics. I was really interested in like illustrations and illustrated books. Loved illustrations, I loved drawing, and I loved like animated shows. But I didn't read that many comics and I didn't really know of that many comics. And even now I'm not a huge fan of superhero comics because I'm not that into superhero stuff. And that was like a huge chunk of comics in what I thought of comics, if you get what I mean. Like, I interpreted comics as that being a massive, massive part of it. So it's only really been the past few years that I've actually been able to explore comics and graphic novels and manga and all that kind of thing, which has been really nice. And in a way, because I haven't seen tons and tons of it, it's kind of still really exciting and new to me. So I guess that's part of the joy of it. But yeah, really, my absolute, like, the media that I intake the most is TV. And I really, really love TV and animated series as well. I would go so far as to say it's like a special interest, as close as I get as an autistic person to a special interest, I would say. And yeah, for me, like, what is so incredibly cool about comics is that, like, it's like making a TV show where you get to decide the story, the characters, the atmosphere of everything, the vibe of everything. You get to draw it in a way that is uniquely yours. Nobody else can draw exactly like you. The whole thing's just yours and decided by you. And it's this whole little world you can create. And then you like, you know, it's down on paper, it's pressed into paper, and then people can enjoy it without internet connection, without technology. They can take it with them anywhere. And I just think that's really, really cool in a way that I think is quite unique to comics. Yeah, it's like, you know, you might say if you love TV so much, why don't you work for TV? Why don't you go and write scripts or something? But it's just not the same. It's like you don't get to do everything like you can with comics. And it's a very, very different kind of world and work to get into as well. I just think what's so exciting and inspiring about comics, it is like I think how vast the media feels and how, yeah, it just has this ability to put forward such a vivid story in a way that is still like 2D and on paper, if that makes any sense. I just think it's very, very cool in that way. And when I'm reading comics, one of the things I'm really drawn to is like, if I can really feel the artist's personality, if I can really feel who they are, if I can feel like their love and passion for what they're making, that I'm really drawn to. I just love when I'm reading a comic and it makes me feel something. Maybe it deliberately creates space, it creates a moment of pause, or it creates a certain emotion. I just think there's something so amazing about the way comics can do that, with lines on a page. I don't know how to explain it. It's really hard to explain, but yeah, and I think I love seeing lots of different kinds of comics as well. You know, comics that push the boundaries of what you might expect in a comic. Comics that are very naive, comics that are very, you know, detailed, everything, you know. I just think they're incredible. And yeah, it's kind of like my love of TV definitely feeds into it a lot because, like I say, it's like getting to create a little TV show that is encapsulated in a book, and I get to decide everything. And also the thing about, especially if you self-publish, and I think self-publishing is really cool, and I won't hear bad words about it, to be honest, is that, you know, you get to decide to make it. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to be famous or to be really well known. You don't need, I mean, obviously you would need that to then sell the work, but you get what I'm saying. You don't usually need a ton of money. You do need some money. It is expensive to self-publish, don't get me wrong. But like, you know, arguably the fact you can still make it exist, even on just a small scale, without needing tons of money. And you don't usually need tons of equipment. You can probably need some equipment. But again, I just think there's something really, really, I'm using the word cool a lot, but I do think it's really cool. I think it's just the way that, yeah, I can sit in this room and make a story and it's completely my own, and I can put it down on paper and I can get it printed and I can hand it to someone and they sometimes somehow connect with it. And I haven't needed anyone's permission and I haven't needed certain qualifications or whatever. I haven't needed a million followers. I don't know, there's just something very brilliant about that that is addictive, I think. There's nothing quite like that. There's nothing quite like that feeling of making something like that. And for me, I think writing is incredible. I love writing myself. I love reading books. But I think like art, there's no book that I think wouldn't be made better with art. I think the illustration is so brilliant in books. And I don't know why there's not more illustration in adult books. It's probably a cost thing because people don't want to pay artists, you know. But I feel really sad when I see a world with, you know, AI art covers or just covers that are like really soulless and they all look the same. Sometimes all these book covers just look the same, don't they, you know? And I think it's such a shame because I think art and words are meant to be together, you know? It's destined, it's written in the stars that art and writing should be together. They live in harmony in the most amazing way. And I think comics just go further into the visual side of that, you know. Yeah, I think that's probably one of my longer answers because I think it's a great question and quite a broad one as well. So yeah, I think honestly what's the word? Like, it's the vastness of comics that in itself inspires me. It's the potential of them and their kind of uniqueness in the world. I just think they're very exciting. And honestly, they're never not hard work. I think they're an absolute labour of love. I hope that answers your question. I'm worried through quite a few of these that I'm not necessarily answering the question right. But yeah, quite a tough question, this one. What would be your I did it moment in life? So when's a moment when I've gone like, oh, I did it? Because I don't often think of things like that. I'm not very good at like processing achievements. It's quite difficult. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Like, and there's not always these obvious like moments of like things I've done. I don't know. Something that did come to mind though was like, I think kind of the fact that I'm taken more seriously as an artist now in and of itself is quite an I did it moment. And I have little moments of that where, you know, a friend will say, oh yeah, my friend who's an artist, or oh, I was looking at your art, or it's really cool you work as an artist, or just people seriously talking about me as an artist. And that is what I am. It, like, to be taken, you know, as truth, is actually still quite weird for me, quite surreal, because for so long I didn't think I could be an artist. I didn't think I was good enough at art. And I didn't pursue it for a long time more seriously because I was like, I just could never get to the point of being being an artist in any kind of serious way. I think serious isn't really the right word, but I think you know what I mean. And I was just like, I just need to kind of be happy with my lot in life, that that's not what I'm going to do. And yeah, and then there was a period of time where I was like about 5 years ago, where I was like, okay, I don't have the skill, I'm bad at this, but I want to try and do it anyway because it's just what I truly feel driven towards. And I've realised that now. And still, though, for a few years, it was like, oh, she's trying to be an artist. Oh, you know, my mum, she would say, like, my daughter's trying to be an artist, she's studying it, she's giving it a go. You know, that's the way we talk about it. And then even I had this conversation where I was like, I need to take myself more seriously. I need to get other people to take me more seriously. I am an artist. That is what I am doing. And over time, that just became reality. So I think I have little moments where people do talk about my work and talk about me as an artist, where I'm like, oh yeah. Even being asked questions, actually, like even putting this on, being asked questions, all these questions, even that was kind of a little, oh, like I'm actually an artist. Like, so I think that's probably one of the biggest I did it moments I have, is these little moments where I'm reminded that I actually am an artist that people genuinely like the work of and ask for advice from and stuff like that, because that still feels quite surreal to me. I don't really have any big moments of massive achievement, to be honest. I think I feel quite a sense of achievement finishing this comic, I can't deny, because this has been like the biggest project I've ever done. I've worked on this first issue of this comic for over a year, and it's been, even psychologically, just really hard to push through like the doubts and the knowledge that it's definitely not the most skillful piece of work, and there's a lot that I need to improve, and I'm honestly a bit embarrassed by bits of it. But to push through that and to say, no, I still want to make this and I still want to put it out there and I still want to start this story, you know, I think has been a real challenge that I feel confident I am going to complete. So I think that will feel like quite an achievement. So that's probably going to be my next I did it moment. How do you deal with art block / lack of inspiration and motivation? It's really tough, this one. They're all tough. So personally, the way I often deal with it is I have a rest, because I know myself and I know that often when I get blocked it's because I'm really tired or I'm overwhelmed or I've got too stuck in the same thing. I do think taking time away from it, especially time, you know, out in nature or doing things you love, or, you know, reading, as I love watching TV, just taking time away and allowing yourself to take a break from it is important. Another thing I'd say is like doing something very different. It like maybe art, but like very different, but that's kind of fun. Like exercises, like I don't know, just having fun with things. Drawing with your non-dominant hand, drawing with a massive paintbrush if you normally work really detailed, drawing with materials you don't normally use. Try and get into the act of creating away from what your normal work is or what your normal projects are, and just focus on the act of physically putting marks on paper or whatever your medium is. I think that can help you break out of art block as well. Motivation is almost like another thing entirely to me, because motivation is, I feel like sometimes I can be wanting to do the work, I can feel motivated, but the block is there and I'm really struggling to draw. And that can be really, really difficult. I was thinking earlier, like, being blocked with your art, whether it's ideas or physically when you put pen to paper, not being able to draw very well, because I have that quite a lot. Like, it's almost like my skill has gone out the window, and I'm just really struggling to draw. It's a very, very, very difficult thing for an artist, because I was like, it's almost like not being able to breathe. Like, it's such an integral part of your life, an integral part of you as a person. It's like being without it is like you feel bereft of like this thing within you. And I think that's why it is so like painful to us and we want to move past it. But I think we have to like calm down and say, okay, I have to just accept that maybe I'm a bit blocked and give it time. Because I think a lot of art block, it can come from things that actually aren't to do with art at all. It can be to do with mental tiredness. I deal with this a lot. It's probably my biggest, well, it's definitely my biggest autistic trait, is how mentally tired I get. And yeah, I get fatigued a lot. And yeah, mental fatigue, mental stress, physical tiredness, physical stress, things that are going on in your life. All these things can affect your art and your art block and your motivation. So don't discount that there might be a lot of external factors getting in the way as well, that you might not originally link to your art. Again, I think for me, it's replenishing your energy. It's replenishing energy, and or motivation. Maybe looking at it from a different angle. Maybe switching projects or doing something different. That maybe has a different kind of motivation. That might help you to find a new angle to it. It is really tough, and I think you can't possibly expect yourself to be motivated all the time, to never get art block, to feel the same all the time. It's just impossible. We do alter and change, and that is part of life. Yeah, like inspiration, again, I don't often struggle with that as much because I just think there's so much going on all the time. Like even just online, I can just be looking through stuff and then I'll see an article about something or a podcast about something, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, and I just get interested in it. But when you feel like, yeah, I do get what you mean, when you feel like the ideas are just not there or you're not feeling excited about them, for me, a lot of it just comes back to tiredness, to exhaustion. So I guess my fix is often to counter it with something completely different, like I say, to calm down, to give my brain a break. I think a lot of the time, my brain's very overloaded. I think that's partly to do with being autistic. I'm taking a lot of stuff all the time. It all jumbles up in there. And I sort of need to calm it down somehow. So yeah, I guess for me, a lot of dealing with it is resting, changing approach, taking a break with something different. And yeah, just things that I personally find restorative or helpful for me. Oh, this is tough. How do you maintain genuine desire to make art when money becomes involved? Oh, this is a difficult one. So for me, I really separate them in my head. Now, this is sometimes at my detriment. I'll be honest, I have to really get myself to like be more business minded sometimes in order to like someday maybe hopefully make this some kind of living, something. Because I'm usually very heavily focused on the art, and the business is like, oh, okay, yeah. But I do separate them a lot in my brain. I just think for me, the genuine desire isn't affected by that for me. To me, the genuine desire is like this solid thing in my soul. I don't know if I want to use the word soul, it seems a bit intense, but it's genuinely, it's rooted in there and it's kind of impenetrable. It won't get affected by that for me. But I will say, I get what you mean, because there's what I think can be affected more by the money thing is more generally my mental state. I think there have been times when the worry to make money, the worry to make a living, makes me discouraged about how it might stop me from being able to continue doing this full-time or part-time or whatever. That does make me feel discouraged, but it doesn't affect my desire to make art, if that makes sense. Because like I say, my desire to make art is, to me, like untouchable. I think one of the dangers can be, and it is obviously people's choice, is feeling that because something makes money, that's what you have to make. Say, for example, you find that something happens to be really popular with people and it starts selling really well. And so you feel inclined to make that kind of thing over and over again. And maybe you think you don't even actually really like making it, but you keep making it because it has a success monetarily. Now, sometimes there's reason to make that decision. For example, if you could say, okay, well, I can spend 20% of my time making this stuff that I know sells pretty well, and then the other time I can spend on more of my like passion projects and stuff I really, really want to do, which is hard to sell, but like I really, really want to do it, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It's all for people to understand for themselves what they want to do. I do think though, if you're someone who you're spending 90% of your time doing something that, yeah, makes money, but you don't enjoy making as an artist, or it doesn't feel connected to you as an artist, then I think that is when your genuine desire to connect to art will be affected. It will start to be depleted because you're making it for the money rather than this is what I actually want to make and this is what I'm actually passionate about. So I think it's about balancing those things. Like, making money is part of choosing to be an artist in a professional sense, and it does affect your art and it does affect you, how you think about your work. Like I say, I probably very much heavily put a lot more importance on the art, but as a result my business has been very difficult. So even I have to be a bit more realistic with myself, and have been trying to be recently. And I've had to take some quite different approaches to trying to make money, than maybe other people would. Everybody approaches it differently, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it's about protecting that. I think, like I said, you need to protect that desire to make art and really, really care about doing that. I think that's what will help. If you're someone who is, considering to start a business with art, I think really remind yourself why you're doing it intrinsically and protect that desire to make art with everything you've got. And it's okay if sometimes it is affected and you need to rethink and regroup. That's fine. I think it's awareness. Awareness is important. And like I say, try to separate them in your mind. I'm making this piece of work because I want to make it. Oh, and also I might try and make it a print and sell it, and let's see what happens. But it's not a better mindset, because it really depends what you're trying to do. But I think it's a mindset that will protect your genuine joy with art more. That being said, it's not always the smartest business decision, which is why these things are complicated. What's your main drive? Being an artist is hard. Yes, it is. I feel your pain. Right. This is kind of actually similar to what it said in the first question. This thing that I just think art is, comics and art in general are very exciting. And I think for me, the drive is, I think a lot about how, for me, curiosity, the feeling of being curious, of learning, of never stopping, being open to new discoveries and new things and new ways of doing things is quite a driving force in my life in general. And I think a driving force, dare I say, to, life on Earth, to be honest. I think that curiosity would make the world a better place if people really leaned into it more. I think there's an openness to being curious, to searching, to humbling yourself and not seeing yourself as an expert on everything. Everyone thinks they know everything, and they don't. And I actually think leaning into the fact that you don't is a much more exciting way to live. It's really interesting. And yeah, that is quite a driving force, is just curiosity itself. I always know that I'm going to be in a better mindset when I'm feeling curious about things, when I'm like, oh, I want to learn about that, and oh, that's really interesting. It helps me move forward, because it's like there's more to do, there's more to learn, there's more to explore, more to hope for. And I think in a very dark world, that often feels like, I don't know, it's at the end of things. I think curiosity reminds us that there is still so much out there and so much good out there, and that knowledge can help the world be a better place as well. I got a bit off, that was a bit of a tangent there, but I think what drives me forward is that I'm never ever bored by art. I'm never bored by it. I can wake up and feel discouraged, I can feel annoyed, I can feel frustrated, I can feel lost with my work, but I'm never bored, ever. And that was what I found was the difference for me between what I pursued before and figuring out what I really, really feel driven towards, which is art. Because I used to be a musician, it's a long story, pursued that for a lot of my life, but I love music, I love experiencing it, I love listening to it. I had some incredible experiences and times playing music, playing in orchestras that I will never forget. But in general, I get bored of music. I used to get really bored of it. I didn't have that thing that I have now, where sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking of last night. That's how I'm going to fix this problem. That's what I want to do about that. Oh, that's that story I wanted. In the middle of the night, writing something down. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Oh, I want to learn that. I never had that with music to the same level. I hardly had it at all, to be honest. Music used to feel like this quite limited space, and it isn't, you know, because when you love it, it isn't. With art, it's like this vast forest that will never end and that I can keep going through, and that I will always find something different and new and exciting. And I think that's what drives me forward, is that there is no dead end. There just isn't. But it is still really hard. Now, and I think that's what I want to make clear, is that I do understand your question, because it is very hard. Like for me, some of the hardest bits have been the business side, or like in general, things like with social media, which is so annoying that social media has to get you down like this. Working really, really hard on something, putting your heart and soul into it, feeling like it really is something that could connect with people, and then it meeting nothing, you know, it falling into the void and nobody seeing it, nobody engaging with it. That can be very frustrating, and it can feel like you have to get yourself back up again so many times, so many times. I think people have quite a rosy view of artists. They think that it's sitting in a quiet room painting away, and it's all very peaceful and it's all very wonderful. And sometimes it is, but it's also a heck of a lot of hard work. Really, a heck of a lot of hard work, psychologically very challenging. You have to be extremely resilient, and I don't think people would necessarily connect the word resilience to artists, but I think it's probably one of the most predominant words that I would link with artists, because the way that you have to try and get knocked down and get underappreciated and not reach people and be criticised heavily. Not that criticism is always bad, it can be really helpful, but you know what I'm saying, like, and you can see all the gaps in your skill that you need to fill, and you're looking at other people's work and you're seeing, oh gosh, they're so much better than me and they're the same age as me and I'm so behind and I want to be better. All these things, they are such they're obstacles. They're constant obstacles and challenges and things that wear you down. And it is really, really hard. And I think, like you say, you've got to find, I would say to this commenter, you've got to really hold on to why you're doing it. What is it that you love about it? And again, kind of like the previous thing, protect it. Really hold on to that and remind yourself of it as much as you possibly can. One thing I sometimes think to myself is, it's feeling really hard today, it's really discouraging, I'm making no money, I'm not getting anywhere, I don't know what I'm going to do, I can't pursue this, can I? Like, how am I going to do this? And then I think, okay, do you know what would be an option? Just give up. Like, decide to not do this anymore. Decide to change careers. We could train as something else. I used to teach music. I could train and do that. Let's just pack it up. It would be a relief, wouldn't it? You know, you wouldn't have to worry about any of these things. It would be over. You could just leave it be and not do this anymore. And I think, no, giving up was never an option for me, ever. So the way I see it, I don't even entertain the idea of giving up. I literally don't see it as a possibility. It's like saying, can I turn back time? No, I can't. So shut up thinking about it. That's what I think to myself. Don't think about it anymore. Just don't even bother. Don't waste a thought on it. So that's what I think about art. I'm like, I could give up. No, it's not an option. So there you go. And then somehow that helps. So yeah, I think my drive is that I love it. I think it's the most cool experience in the world to make work in this little room, put my brain on a page, and for people to connect with it somehow. It just never stops being interesting to me. It doesn't bore me, ever. That's what drives me forward, is the curiosity of it, the intrigue of it, the vastness of it, and that it's what I truly want to do and what I always wanted to do. And I do think there is maybe something to be said for the fact that for many, many years of my childhood and my early adult life, I didn't think I could do it. So I don't think the novelty of it has worn off for me, and that's a part of it as well. But it is really hard, and I do recognise that. And I also find it really hard. In fact, I had a conversation with my dad not that long ago, when I had a day where I was feeling really low about the business. I was feeling really lost. I was feeling really confused. I was really, really struggling with it all. And I was quite upset. And my dad was like, sometimes you seem more upset doing this than if you went and did an office job or something, which, you know, supposedly is your worst nightmare. But, you know, you seem more unhappy than people who aren't doing what they really want to do. You know, he's like, you're doing, I would believe, you know, he said, you seem like you know, you say this is what you really want to do, what you dream of doing. He was saying this out of concern, by the way. I get on really well with my dad. He was just like, it's sad seeing you struggling with it so much. And I was like, but this is the trouble, is that it's wonderful and it's what I really want to do and it's my passion and it's my dream, but it's still really hard. And that's I think accepting that coexistence is part of the answer to your question, is that it's okay for it to be hard and it's okay for it to be frustrating. And you know, you will have times where you want to pack it in, or where it's feeling really, really difficult, and where it affects you a lot, because it's very integral to our personalities. You know, you could ask your friend who's in a really bad mood, what's the matter? Like, you seem really out of it, you don't seem yourself, what is it? And they could just be like, I've got art block. You know, that could be it. That could be it. People might say, well, come on, no one's in trouble, there's nothing really awful happening. Why is that affecting you so much? But it does, because it's so deep in our bones. If that makes any sense. Like I say, it's like not being able to breathe. I'm being a bit melodramatic maybe, but I hope that's maybe somewhat an answer to your question, if a bit of an overkill one. Okay, I've answered 5 questions and I think this video is like going towards 40 minutes long. Okay, so I've got 2 more shorter questions to answer. This is a much easier one to answer. What pencils would you recommend for drawing? Excellent question. I would say pencils are incredible, yeah? So they don't need to be fancy, they don't need to be amazing. A lot of brands are great, but just to say, in digital realms, I just use the 6B pencil that comes with Procreate. I'm not necessarily going to use Procreate forever. In fact, I'm thinking of switching to Clip Studio Paint at some point. That's a thing for another day. But some examples of pencils I use. I happen to use these Caran Grafwood pencils. I also quite like Faber Castell, just their standard pencil. Does say Castell 9000. I don't know if that means anything. And I do also quite often use, I have just 2 mechanical pencils. I use this one just to write with a lot of the time. I basically never write in pen. This is the thing about me that's a bit random. I do like drawing in ink sometimes, and I used to do that more predominantly. I used to have dip pen and ink. Now I have a refillable fountain pen that I really like, but I predominantly always use pencil now, even when I'm like writing anything. I don't like writing in pen. It's just always been my way ever since I was a kid. But this is a Faber Castell 0.7 TK fine mechanical pencil. It's just really useful for for writing with or planning stuff out. And I do have a 6B mechanical pencil as well. Generally, I prefer wood pencils. You know, they don't use plastic, all that kind of thing. But I do think the odd mechanical pencil, obviously, they're quite unique in nature and they can be really useful. Important things, you can get pencils that are aquarelle, which means they like mix with water. So depending on what you're doing, they can be really fun, but generally you want to make sure that they're not of that nature, because if you want to paint over them or use them with other stuff, you don't necessarily want them to mix with the water. So just be aware that is, you know, which one you're buying. I really like Faber Castell as a brand, and I do really like Caran as well. As I say, Grafwood. I think I said Graftwood before, but it's not, it's Grafwood. Other things I would say are important, obviously you know, is it HB, is it 6B, whatever, is important. I often like write with 2B or HB if I'm actually just writing things or planning little things out. For actual drawing, I would say the majority of the time I'm using 4B, 6B or 7B, 8B, that kind of thing. I would say 6B actually. 6B is my most used pencil probably. 4B, quite common as well. And then for darker lines or for smudgier things, I would use 8B and stuff. Don't forget though the importance of the surface you're using and actually the pencil sharpener, because for a long while I snapped the leads of quite a lot of pencils with like really small sharpeners. And I will say that I have this hand crank metal sharpener by Jakar, and this saved a lot of pencils from snapping. So I do think something like this is quite worth buying. I don't usually like to suggest that you have to buy things, you know, consumerism, but I do think that saved, you know, sometimes pens, especially coloured pencils, can be really expensive. And when the lead is snapping and snapping and snapping, it's very frustrating because you can have paid quite a lot for that pencil. So a decent pencil sharpener can help. And the other thing is the surface you're drawing on. You know, I think pencil especially, it's good to find a paper that will give you the atmosphere that you want, because some papers, they're too kind of shiny, so you won't get the graininess that you might want from the drawing. And some pencils are too rough, so again, the pencil lead is going to go too soft. And also, drawing on a flat, hard surface, you know, like a hard table, can definitely give you more of a proper grain than drawing, say, in a thick sketchbook over just the pages. So that's important to remember as well. Honestly, paper is probably the harder one to figure out than the pencils. So yeah, but pencil's great. Oh, here we go. This question. How much money do you make from your art on average every month? Right, this is quite a hard question to ask. Sorry, quite a hard question to answer, because for some context, I've been doing this business for about 2.5 years. So I've been, like, you know, selling work for about 2.5 years. But to cut a long story short, I'm only really, honestly, this year, 2025, is the year I'm actually counting as kind of my first proper year of trading in my own head, because while on paper I have been trading longer than that, I have not had the capacity to put much effort into the business for a lot of those years. Part of the reason I went full-time with art is just because I was really, really mentally ill, and I still was for a couple of years into running the business. I'm only like a lot more level now as of the past about 6 months or so. So I feel like this is the first time I've really been able to put 100% into this. I'm telling you all this just to be clear that I don't want people to necessarily get discouraged when they hear the numbers I'm about to say, because I will say that definitely there's people out there who have more capacity than me, who are better business minded than me, who you know, have more networking ability, who could definitely be making more than I am at the moment. So don't get discouraged when I tell you. First, transparency. I didn't work out an average because it's quite hard for me to do that. So I'm just going to tell you like how much money I've made each month this year out of interest. So I hope that's a good enough answer for you, because I can't really work out the average yet. I don't really think that makes sense. In January, I made a profit of £1.98, but I actually took in £32. So I did sell £32 worth of stuff. In February, I had a profit of £97.70. So that's not quite so bad, is it? In March, I had a profit of £35.25. Okay. And in April, I had a profit of £278.90. Boosted a fair bit by YouTube. That's kind of an example. So what would an average of that be? Maybe like £50. I don't know. I'm not very good at maths. So honestly, being asked to do an average, I'm the wrong person to ask, to be honest. So yeah, that's kind of the reality. I don't make a lot of money. I do try to be honest about that without, like, I don't know, getting into big conversations where people are kind of like, well, why are you even doing this? Because it kind of frustrates me, because there's a lot of reasons as to why I don't do another job and stuff like that, and it's quite complicated. Yeah, that's just the reality, because you asked the question, and I will be transparent that that is currently the kind of money that I make, and I'm working hard to try and increase that number while still being true to my artistic self. So yeah, it is tough. It's tough out there for a lot of artists, even people that are really well established, have tons of followers, have a thriving, you know, support network. It's still really tough. So I sometimes see these videos of like how I made £200,000 a year as an artist, and I'm like, whoa, they are people who are working at an intense level that honestly I don't aspire to. And not in a bad way, but sometimes, you know, the suggestion is, you know, put your stuff on click on demand services or whatever. I don't want to do that, because I don't want to contribute to random you know, clothing waste and stuff like that. My stuff being put on things that I don't know where it's being made, I don't know the ethics of it, I don't know, you know, where that's going to go. So there's all kinds of ways you can make money, but it doesn't mean that they align with you. So I think that's part of it as well, just to do a bit of a side note. But yeah, when I see those videos, I'm kind of like, it just makes me laugh, honestly. I'm kind of like, to be honest, if I make £200 profit in this year, I'll be pretty impressed. My aim for this year is to make about £2,000. And I'm quite far off that. So we'll see. But yeah, we keep keeping on. I think I'm going to leave that for the Q&A today because, you know, rambling on. Don't want to make the videos too long because it's just quite hard to then edit it because it becomes a massive file. So I hope you understand. I think it's probably going to be 3 parts actually now if I'm being realistic. So yeah, I hope this has been interesting. And thank you so much for watching. And thank you for your patience. If you asked a question and you're now having to wait like 2-3 weeks, I don't know how long it's going to take. But I will try to film more of it. I also think I'm going to start maybe doing weekly little behind the scenes vlogs because I used to do that on TikTok, like little tiny little weekly vlogs. And I was watching them last night and I was like, actually, this is really nostalgic and I've really missed doing this. And it was quite a good way to create a groundwork of like consistency without pressuring myself too much of what I was going to say and what I'm going to do. So I think I might start doing those. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was of interest to you. You can find my work on my website, www.sammaculin.com, and you can also follow me on, I would recommend following me on TikTok mainly because I have a bit of a love-hate relationship, well, mostly a hate relationship with Instagram, even though it's a nice place to chat with people, don't get me wrong. And yes, I hope to see you next time where I'll be answering more questions or it'll be a vlog or something. So yeah, thanks so much and see you next time.